coaching teachers can be tough. A lot of times we get into coaching or we're in a coaching role because we were great in the classroom. We were using effective teaching practices. We're getting good results with students. Students probably liked you. You were tapped on the shoulder to move up and go, or move sideways and go, I want to, transition what I've been doing in the class to other teachers. And we engage with teachers on a regular basis and trying to progress them along in their, in their journey. And sometimes we think about, being that person that has to give the advice when we're in that role, especially when we first get in that role. You're coaching, you're like, I got to make sure there's value here today. I don't want to waste the teacher's time. And that feeling is real. But I think where the real value in our coaching is getting getting the teachers we're working with to realize where they struggle, where they need, and half the battle is getting them to realize what those things are. What do you need? What is it that you need to kind of work on here today? So I've got 7 questions here that you keep in your back pocket when you're engaging with teachers to get them to, progress forward and start to think about their practice and focus on the things that matter in the classroom for mathematics. And so the 7 questions here are borrowed from the Coaching Habit, which is a book that both Kyle and I have read numerous times and I use. We use, if you've listened to our podcast, the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast, we have regular episodes where we talk with teachers in the classroom and we coach them on those episodes, and we utilize these questions in that coaching style. But these are the questions you want to have in your back pocket when you walk into a classroom or you walk into a PLC or you're doing a one-on-one session with a teacher. And that first question is called the kind of like the kickoff question from Michael Ben-Yosef. He calls that first question like, what's on your mind? It's like the version that I and Kyle will use in the kickoff question isn't the what's on your mind. Even though if you're you're sitting down at a table and you just say, hey, so what's on your mind? Like what can we dive into here today? That's not bad to kind of kick things off. What you want the teacher to do is spill. Like let's unpack all the things that are kind of on my mind. We often use what's a pebble right in your shoe right now that we could pluck out of there. The pebble question is aimed at trying to get teachers to share and get the conversation started. We want them to be the ones that kind of like go steer the conversation. We want to be in a position where we're always being helpful, but we also want to make sure that we are helping what they need help with. Too many teachers push back on coaching because they think that every time a coach comes in, they have to give them something new. Every time I interact with a coach, they give me another thing to try in the classroom. We need, as coaches, if we're going to effectively be coaches, we need them to think that we're not putting something on their plate, but we're taking something off their plate. And the pebble question, the what's on your mind question, is the move for them to allow us to kind of go, okay, let's dig into your pebble. And that would be great. Wouldn't it be great if we could pluck that pebble out of your shoe today or next week? Or maybe we work towards plucking that pebble out over the course of our cycle together or a year. So that's the first question, which is the what's on your mind question from the book. We call it the pebble question. The real key question is the and what else question. So when you ask the pebble, typically teachers are going to say some of the things that come to mind. But what you can say right after is like, what else? What are some of the other pebbles here for you? What else is going on? And the what else question actually helps steer the conversation a little bit to where their focus needs to be, and they start to think about what is it that I want to get help on. It even though it says what else, it actually helps narrow where they want to dig. And it's a powerful question because you can say what else, and they will give you another pebble, and then you could say, well, is that it? Is what else? Like, what else is going on right now? Can we unpack? And then what we can do is we can focus it. That's the third question here. Like where do you feel like we can make the most dent? The third question from Michael Ben-Yosef says, what's the real challenge here for you? Like, what is it really that's bugging you? What is it really that the issue? And really what we're doing is steering to the issue that they want, they want the most help with. And that's like kind of saying like, what's that real challenge here for you, or what's going on, or what can we dig into here today? Where can you make the most dent? Is a question I've often used with teachers, is how can we do that? And then Michael Beignet states, next question is, what do you want? So I replace the what do you want with the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand and you could do one thing today, or you could do one thing this week, what would that one thing be? And that's really the same question. It's getting them to clarify what they really want here. And so when they say, this is what I want, our next move, instead of saying, what are we saying yes to when we say no to, what I love to say instead of that is I replace that question with, well, what's holding you back? Like, what are the barriers right now that prevent us from doing the thing? Is it all of a sudden it's like, I'm not sure the teacher moved to get here. I'm not sure how to handle this particular student. That's a barrier right now. What, maybe it's like, I don't feel confident in the mathematics that I'm going to be teaching on that day. And like, the barrier is where you dig down and decide, this is where can I provide the value? Because I know in the back of your mind, if you're trying to help teachers, is you're trying to figure out, where do I insert my advice? When do I give that advice out? Is it now? Is it later? Or like, I got to make sure I get that advice in. I would say hold back on that advice. Hold back until you can get that real issue where you can make that teacher say like, this is the real problem. This is the real barrier that's preventing me right now. And you can say like, all right, if we work on that, if we unpack that, wouldn't that be like great? Like, wouldn't that make it feel like success? Like, that's the success version of the problem. Like, if we could focus our energy on, plucking that pebble or removing that barrier, would you feel like today was a big win? And then you've now got a clear pathway for what you need to do with the teacher, or what the teacher wants to do. And this whole interaction at this point has the teacher steering this conversation in a way to say like, these are the things I want. And you're now going, okay, let's work on that. And now you could provide maybe a next step or unpacking where an issue is, but you've got to the heart. You've got to the real issue there. So those are, so far, that's 6 questions. And notice that last one, it says, how can I help? But what you're saying there is like, what can we really work on? The last question here is how is it most useful, or what is most useful here for you? What I like to do at the end, let's say you worked with a teacher that day or that week, and you've done a coaching cycle, what you want to say is, what was your big takeaway from today? Like, where do you see value in what we've done here today? Like, what are you going to be doing on your next step? And what that does is help steer and focus the teacher to think about the value you've provided that day, or the value you've helped them with. But it also makes them voice it. It becomes real. They've reflected on their own learning in that moment, and it solidifies that learning for them to go like, you're right, I do have a move next to do next, or I do have a new skill, and I did find that valuable. And sometimes you think this might be the most valuable thing that they're going to say, but it might be something else. And that is super, super enlightening to you to go like, where did I provide value today? Because you're going to hear it. They're going to say where you provided value that day. And then you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that I was providing value over here. I thought it was giving you value here, but this is where you got a lot of value. And that's really important information for you as a coach in the next iteration of a teacher, or come back to that teacher. So those are 7 questions that we pull out of our pockets, when we're working with teachers to keep the thinking going. If you can get that teacher to continue to reflect and think on where their practice is, the stronger they're going to be, the stronger your relationship will be with that teacher, which is the most important part about coaching, is building that relational trust, which our mentor Jim Strachan, talks about in the work that he's done, is how to build that more relational trust. And using the 7 questions, or using versions of these 7 questions, is that way you're going to build relational trust. So next time you're in a coaching, have a couple of these ready to get going, and see where the conversation goes.